for example, like reproductive health, for example, like the fact that what are the factors of production that are in that county? What are the minerals are there? I wouldn't have a problem if Taita Taveta, for example, had some money because they need to produce those minerals they have there. I wouldn't mind if Turkana were given some more allocation because they needed to bring the oil that is suspected to be there. But if you simply disperse money because they are counties, because they have been defined in the Constitution, you may want to appease everybody, but you do not get into real development of a nation that result into an enhanced GDP. We must be thinking of a nation, although there is devolution, which then brings which then allows us to harness our rural folk, but we must be thinking as a nation. So even if, for example, Migori were to be the leaders in terms of springing us for GDP, take money in Migori and get Migori to give the country a shot towards Singapore. So in my view is that I think we need to have some intellectual discourse on these formulas. And I think we need to be patriotic as a nation more than we think we are small particles called the counties. And the last thing I think we need to do is we should put money where money will result into more money and real happiness. Sometimes real happiness is not about money. Sometimes real happiness is about social protection. Sometimes real money is about social justice. Just the other day, and we've seen it, young people are protesting around, running all over. It should worry you, it should concern you that social protection, social justice in Nairobi, for example, is a low indicator. So there are some of these things which we need to put together, although I admit that it is a fairly complex science, but I think that we need to put our minds into it so that we come to a more reasonable and an agreed formula. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, because I know Daktari knows that I do not have 2/3 to override this motion, I nonetheless leave it in the Hansard that somebody will consider that I, TJ Kajwang, had very, very robust criticism about the formula which is being used. Thank you so much.
The Honorable Dr. James Nyikal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I rise to actually support the report and this formula. I think it is actually an improvement of the formula that was used before, and I know how much work has been put into it. However, I think it has limitation, Mr. Speaker, because it's basically based on three things: population size, land size, and poverty index. Now, looking at poverty index is actually looking at the reverse. It would have been better to look at human development index, because that is what is telling you what people actually need. Poverty index is to a large extent telling you how much people are suffering without telling you very much what they need to do. And therefore, if we used human development index, which then will tell you how people are doing in terms of health, how people are doing in terms of education, how people are doing in terms of standard of living. For example, in health, you will use such figures as life expectancy as birth. And if you go into that, then you find out why is it that people are living shorter. In this country, if you go to, you find that in Nyanza, probably the life expectancy is much shorter than it is in the central parts of the country. And you ask why. Then you think of years of school. By the age of 25, how long have people been in school and what have they actually achieved? and then you look at per capita income, I think those will give you a much more robust indicator or index. And then you can actually use really practical things, like you will use distance to health centers. How far do people walk in a given county to the nearest health center? The amount of tarmac roads in kilometers per individual. Those are actually much more direct way of looking at, and they give you, if you look at tarmac roads, then you can actually say how much more do we need of tarmac roads. If you look at the distance to health facilities, you then actually can come out and say these are the number of health facilities we need in this area, so these people will need this. So I think, as much as they're using poverty index, I would say they should work next time with the Human Development Index and then look at the components of the Human Development Index that will give you direct input that you need to actually use to estimate the amount of income, the amount of money that should be given the county. But, Mr. Speaker, much more important is how the money is used. Every time we stand here, Mr. Speaker, we talk of corruption in the counties, corruption in the counties. True, I've looked at that. To me, what has changed a lot since devolution is actually the number of very expensive houses that you see in the countryside. And when you ask most of them, you find these people are actually working in counties. And I say, well, at least something has happened. So we talk of that corruption, but there's one thing we don't look at. What about the systems? The systems do help us to actually reduce corruption. We cannot eliminate them, but we reduce corruption. Financial systems. It is just last week we were actually talking of the financial systems that we use in the county. We have the bigger Public Finance Act, but how well are people trained on this? If you look at procurement systems, how well are people trained at the county level in this? If you look at human resource. Now, I'll give an example of health sector which I'm familiar with. I think of devolved functions, the function that has the largest number of human resource at the county level is health. And it is so complex, and that's why we have these issues. Now, if you look at training, we have a school of government, and there's only one in the country. One would have expected that at this time, we should actually have several schools of government in various parts because of devolution, so that these officers actually, officers at the county level, get the appropriate training. We compare county governments with the national government. The national government has been in existence for over 100 years. So the experience that has been gathered and the number of people who have that experience in national government is huge. County governments have just been here for about 10 years. However much we expect them to gather experience, we need a lot more intensive training for these counties. Another thing that is coming very clear, like in this, they are figuring out the 12 counties because they are small. The size of counties also matter, Mr. Speaker, because personally I believe that the counties we have are too small. And the evidence is that the counties themselves are now coming with regional blocks. They have realized that if we need to be more prospective, be more productive, we need to be larger. They are telling us, so we ask in Naivasha, how did we get to this number 47? Well, I know it may be now very difficult to go back and say, can we go back to the 8 that were originally proposed? So these are issues that actually we must keep looking at. The other issue is that the raising of own revenue. I think we should put an index in this distribution formula that indicates how much own revenue has a county raised. And then we actually reward those who are doing well on raising their own funds probably should get more so that there's an incentive. Otherwise, what happens, we don't work on the raising our own revenue. We want to depend to a large extent what comes from this formula. So, Mr. Speaker, I've said before and I say now, we had a committee for the implementation of the Constitution, which was to a large extent legal, which then actually died, which was term was over. Then we came with the Transition Authority, then we now intergovernmental. This House actually has a committee on implementation of the Constitution. And I think we should regularly be looking at what we need to do. How are the structures? How are the performances? If every time we are having MCAs working very hard to impeach governors, what are the factors behind it? So if the governors are not, if the counties are not performing, what are the factors that are there? And then we can then review the whole issue of county governance with these facts that we have in mind. So I think this is a fairly scientific and very difficult formula they are working on, but it can give a basis for regular review of how devolution is working. With that, Mr. Speaker, I support.
Thank you. The Honorable Dr. Makali Mulu, MP for Kitui Central.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity. Honorable Speaker, I want to join my colleagues in commenting on this fourth generation formula. And as I do that, I want from the word go to say that if I was able to move the numbers, I would have opposed this formula. But now that we'll not be able to move the numbers, let's go on record on a number of issues. Honorable Speaker, sharing of public resources has never been an easy assignment. In some countries, it actually triggers war. In some countries, it causes serious conflicts because resources generally is what determines how areas or regions are going to develop. Honorable Speaker, I've looked at the factors being considered in this fourth generation formula. And I've had the privilege of looking at all the previous three. And now this is the fourth generation. And if you analyze from the first one to the fourth one, they have always been dropping some things and bringing on board new ones. They have been changing the factor, what we call like now the percentages in terms of contribution. And that has had some impact in terms of what goes, how much each county gets. One thing I must appreciate the current formula for, Honorable Speaker, is to ensure that as we move to the future, no county will get less than what they have been getting in the past. That is important. But Honorable Speaker, just taking you back to the history of this country, there was a system paper number 10 of 1965, which was a paper on African socialism and its application to planning in Kenya. What did that paper do? That paper was emphasizing on developing high potential areas in this country. And it means in terms of resource allocation, public resources were pushed to those areas which were seen to be high potential. So from the word go, there was skewness in resource allocation. And as a result of that, Honorable Speaker, you find some regions are marginalized. And that's why we came up with the Equitable Equalization Fund. So what are we saying, Honorable Speaker? We are saying, by design, some parts of this country have remained poor for some time. And that's why poverty rates are very high. So in such a situation, the reason we have been pushing for poverty rates to be high in these terms of percentage is so that we help these areas to come up. But now, as you can see, Honorable Speaker, if you look at the percentages being allocated to poverty levels, it has kept on reducing every year. And what has happened, Honorable Speaker, is now that we are going back to pushing population to be the leading factor. But Honorable Speaker, through this paper number 10 of 1965, because those areas were developed, what happened? People migrated from marginalized area to high potential areas. So in terms of population, automatically, population of those areas is very high. So what we are going, Honorable Speaker, through this formula, this fourth generation, we actually almost like now coming back to the system of paper number 10 of 1965 in terms of our planning. And that's it to be, I say, when you give population a figure of 45% of the resources, Honorable Speaker, you have been unfair to the rest of the country. Why am I saying that? There are areas like this area where the geographic area is so big that providing services and goods to these areas is a tall order. But now we are downgrading population, geographical area, and upgrading population. So, Honorable Speaker, what will happen with the time is this country, counties which have a big area in terms of a geographic area, will never develop at the same pace with countries which have high population. I'm having in mind, Honorable Speaker, areas like northeastern part of this country, southeastern part of this country, north lifts of this country. Those areas will remain always marginalized because we are once more pushing resources to areas where the population is high. So if I had my own way, Honorable Speaker, I would have wanted to see the percentage which is pegged to population being reduced and increasing the percentage in geographical area. The other important area, Honorable Speaker, is if you look at our constitution, it says very clearly that resources should be shared in a way that each county is able to implement the functions of the county. One thing we have not done as a country is we have not costed devolved functions fully. And where we attempted to cost devolved function, that was about 10 years ago. Things have changed. Honorable Speaker, the price of the unit of electricity 2013 is not the same as the price of the unit of electricity today. So we need a situation where we need to sit and say, for counties to be effective in implementation of their functions, how much is required for counties in totality, so that we cost all the functions and say we require 700 billion. Now, on the basis of that, we allocate the 700 billion and then see how to share it. But the Honorable Speaker, as we said, if you look at just the immediate, the third generation formula, issues of health were factored in, issues of agriculture were factored in, issues of roads development were factored in. Now they have all disappeared. Honorable Speaker, you'll be surprised. An area like, take an example of Garissa. If you look at the roads of Garissa in terms of development, they have no roads. They have what we call just parts, being called roads. So at what point shall we develop roads in Garissa, in Mandera, in Kitui, in Makueni, if we don't factor in the level of infrastructural development in our sharing formula? These are the issues, Honorable Speaker. But you realize that because it looks like we are still pushing so hard for where people are, we agree that we continue being left behind. The issue of corruption, we all talk about it here. How do you address corruption when you omit or when you exclude fiscal responsibility as a factor in sharing resources? That you don't care how people use the resources before you give them more resources. I would have wished to see a situation where fiscal responsibility becomes an important factor in sharing resources, so that those who take care of public resources are given more. Those who misapply or misdirect are given less. And then we'll have more people joining the club of those who people use public resources well. But for now, it doesn't matter whether I use well or I don't use well, I'll still get resources based on this formula. So I wish we had a way of opening up this formula and improving the situation. But since you can't raise the truth as Honorable Speaker, we can only say we live with this formula for the next 5 years, and those who are marginalized can continue being marginalized. Those who are developed, let them continue being developed. I submit, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Yusuf Mohammed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also add my voice to this revenue allocation bill. Mr. Speaker, as my colleagues have already said, if I was able today to garner the 2/3 majority to reject this bill, I could have done it. But unfortunately, now that I can't do it and it has already gone further, I am just forced to support this bill. However, Mr. Speaker, I must make my reservations for the records. Mr. Speaker, The Constitution has outlined policies and guidelines on how resources are shared between the two levels of government. However, despite well-formulated guidelines, Mr. Speaker, on revenue sharing, there has been a delay of agreeing on the amount to be allocated to the two levels of government because of certain interests. Mr. Speaker, the parameters or the factors used to determine the sharing of the revenue is quite alarming, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when you make one of the factors of revenue allocation to the county government as the population index, which is based on 2019 Kenyan census, this clearly shows you how people don't care about certain parts of this country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we all know 2019 census was cooked in the interior office by some crooks who pretended to be the census, those who are doing the census, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, some areas have been deliberately marginalized and their numbers have been tempered and reduced by 3/4, Mr. Speaker. The same parameters has been used to allocate resources to the same counties which were marginalized for decades, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, 2019 census is in the corridors of court. The counties, the ASAL counties have went to court to challenge the decision of the Kenya Bureau of Statistics, Kenya Population and Housing Census. And that ruling was kept, that census was set aside, Mr. Speaker. Using nullified census as a parameter to allocate resources to certain counties is not acceptable, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this will take this country or return this country to secessional paper number 1 of 1963, which was deliberate attempt to marginalize specific areas to deny them their rightful resources in this country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the other issue is about geographical size of being a factor, but putting it as 10%, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what are we using these resources?
What is out of order, Honorable Jematia?
Mr. Speaker, I'm standing on the 95. Considering that this formula, and I want to agree with members who have spoken on the floor, that this is a good debate, but considering that we are debating on the formula, and for us to conclude and vote, we need a substantial number in the House. And looking at now the floor, we don't have enough. So either way, I would request the Honorable Speaker that you may call the mover to reply. Thank you. Under Standing Order 95.
The Honorable Jematia, I will seek the decision of the House on the matter you have raised once the member speaking concludes.
Correct, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for protecting me from Honorable Jematia for cutting me off. Mr. Speaker, I was on the point of geographical size being used. It is good to use the geographical size as a factor. However, capping it to 10% is unacceptable, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what are we going to use this money for? Allocating money to counties Why are we devolving resources? That is the first question we need to ask ourselves. We are devolving resources to develop each and every village of this country, Mr. Speaker. For a village to have a tarmac road, Mr. Speaker, it needs to have resources, Mr. Speaker. If, Mr. Speaker, you are not considering the length of a road, or if you are not considering the distance of hospitals at the village level, Mr. Speaker, what are you going to use this money for, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, I thought geographical size could have been the number one factor to use to determine the sharing of resources, Mr. Speaker, so that those parts which are not developed are developed, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, some parts which are already getting the junk of the money, or this bill is favoring, are already developed from 1963 up to date, Mr. Speaker. They have roads. They have tapped water, Mr. Speaker. They have tarmac roads, Mr. Speaker. They have hospitals, Mr. Speaker. But those areas, Mr. Speaker, that have been marginalized for quite a while, and their geographical size is much bigger, which I believe doesn't even have 1 kilometer of tarmac road, has still been marginalized in this revenue sharing, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as much as I have all those reservations, but still, the amount allocated is better than the years before, Mr. Speaker. Some people are still talking about corruption. Corruption is everywhere, and we are not condoning this country. We must stand as members of parliament for this country. It is upon us and the rest of Kenyans to stop corruption, Mr. Speaker. We will not allow hard-earned money to go into waste, Mr. Speaker. 85% of these resources, Mr. Speaker, is going to the national government. And the same marginalized areas, they are not even getting 1% of the 85% of the money that is left at the national government, Mr. Speaker. How do we make those counties that are marginalized with a bigger geographical area, with their population, census population manipulated by people who wanted to marginalize those areas, to come up at a par with the rest of the counties, Mr. Speaker? With those few remarks, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, honorable members. The Honorable Jematia stood in a place and asked for the decision of the House on whether the mover should be called to reply. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as are of the contrary opinion say nay? Nay. The ayes have it. Mover.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I would like to thank the members for debating this bill in the manner that they have done, and more particularly offering very strong criticism of the bill. Honorable Speaker, this report which I have just tabled is a report which has come from the Senate.
Is that the Honorable Mudhoni wa Muchomba? Asumbi girls is in the house. I want you to sit before they are recognized. And keep order, please. The Honorable Atandi, continue.
Honorable Speaker, some of the issues that have been raised by members include the failure by this report to include physical discipline as a parameter for consideration of revenue sharing among counties. Honorable Speaker, I want to agree with those people who are saying that this is a very, very important parameter that should have been used. But, Honorable Speaker, the argument that was advanced by the Senate when they appeared before us to defend this report is that, Honorable Speaker, there are some governors that are not physically disciplined in the way they are managing their finances. But the Senate felt that denying the people the resources on the account of a poor manager of a governor was not going to be prudent. So, Honorable Speaker, this formula allowed this parameter to be removed from consideration, so that if one governor is not financially disciplined, that should not be used to deny a whole county resources. The other factor that has been raised, Honorable Speaker, was some members who are questioning why only 12 counties were identified and for use in the new formula. The few counties, the 12 counties, Honorable Speaker, are small counties. And that is the reason why this affirmative action has been employed on them. The reason being, Honorable Speaker, that for the two important parameters, population and geographical size, these two parameters give these counties very little resources. That in the end, these counties do not have resources to undertake development programs. That is why they were identified for affirmative action in this new formula, so that they will be able to receive some money extra to allow them to undertake development programs. Honorable Speaker, with those many remarks, I would like to reply. Thank you.
Honorable members, I want to put the question. Before I do, let me once again notify you that the numbers required for you to negative this motion are not existent. So I'll be putting the question, the way your voices go, the ayes will have it. And so I put the question. Honorable members, I put the question that taking into consideration the findings of the Budget and Appropriations Committee in its report on the consideration of the fourth basis for revenue sharing for county governments, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 19th June 2025, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 217, Sub-Article 1 and Sub-Article 4 of the Constitution and allocation of the share of national revenue among the counties, this House concurs with the Senate and approves the fourth basis for the annual allocation of the share of national revenue to the county level of government for the financial years 2025-2026 to 2029-2030 without amendments as follows. Roman 1, for the county equitable share below Kenya shillings 415 billion, county allocation equal to, in bracket, baseline allocation ratio times Kenya shillings 387.425 billion plus, in bracket, Kenya shillings 3 billion shared equally among the identified 12 counties plus, in bracket, 0.45 times population index plus, in bracket, 0.35 times equal share index plus, in bracket, 0.12 times poverty index plus, into brackets, 0.08 times geographical size index times, into bracket, county equitable share minus Kenya shillings 390.425 billion. Roman 2, for county equitable share of Kenya shillings 415 billion and above, county allocation shall be equal to, into bracket, baseline allocation ratio times Kenya shillings 387.425 billion plus, into bracket, 4.46 billion shared equally among the identified 12 counties plus, into bracket, 0.45 by population index plus, into bracket, 0.35 by equal share index plus 0.5 by poverty index plus, into bracket, 0.08 by geographical size index times county equitable share minus Kenya shillings 391.89 billion, where Roman 1 baseline allocation ratio is equal to the allocation factor derived from each county's allocation of the financial year 2024-2025. Roman 2, the 12 identified counties are Elgeyo Marakwet, Embu, Isiolo, Kirinyaga, Laikipia, Lamu, Nyamira, Nyandarua, Samburu, Taita Taveta, Tharaka Nithi, and Vihiga. Roman 3, the population index is based on the 2019 Kenya National Population and Housing Census, KPHC. Roman 4, the poverty index is based on the 2022 Kenya Poverty Report by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, KNBS. And Roman 5, geographical size is capped at 10%. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as are of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Yeah, next order. But before the next order, let me recognize the following institutions that are visiting the National Assembly, the House of the Parliament of Kenya. We have in the House Good Shepherd Academy from Mwala constituency, Machakos County. And then we have Asumbi Girls from Rangwe constituency, Homa Bay County. Honorable members, Homa Bay County is my county, and Asumbi Girls is the school of my mother. My mother was a pioneer student at Asumbi Girls when it started as a primary school. I therefore, on behalf of the National Assembly, would like to welcome those two institutions to the House of Parliament in their study tour. And on behalf of all of us, I'll allow the minority whip, the minority whip, the Honorable Millie Odhiambo Mabona, good girl, not bad girl today, to welcome both institutions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I'm always a bad girl because good girls don't get the corner office. And the girls who have come before the House must know that for you to make it in life, you have to be a bad girl. But you have to be a bad girl in a good way. You have to be a bad girl by speaking out when there are wrong things going on. You must be a bad girl by saying no to bad things, so people forcing you to do wrong things. Mr. Speaker, I'm very happy to welcome the two schools from Machakos and from Homa Bay County. Mr. Speaker, my two sisters went to school in Asumbi Girls, so I'm very connected and linked to Asumbi Girls. And one of my sisters, who is now working in California, who was also a student there, has also taught in Asumbi Girls. So it's one of our best schools. The girls are doing well, and I just want to indicate, Mr. Speaker, that they are very happy to have women who are examples and they can emulate. In Homa Bay County, the governor, Honorable Gladys Wanga, is a woman. No, she didn't go to Asumbi, but she's the governor and she's a woman. Mr. Speaker, there are a member of parliament who has requested, Mr. Speaker, if she can be allowed, she's been waiting since morning for this school. If she'll be allowed, because she had to run, she's even having a problem with her voice, but she's on her way. So Honorable Lillian Gogo, Honorable Dr. Lillian Gogo, is also a woman. And yours truly, Millie Odhiambo, is also a woman, bad girl. And also the women rep, Honorable Dr. Bensouda, is also a woman. And Honorable Dr. Ivo Barra is also a woman. Mr. Speaker, we have said that people, the men in our constituency, are the ones who will be having a problem, because even me, I'm doing my PhD now. So only we will soon just be hearing Peter Kaluma. Martin Awena. But the rest of us will be Honorable Dr. Millie Odiambo, Honorable Dr. Ivo Bara, Honorable Dr. Lillian Goko. There she's come, Mr. Speaker. Otherwise, we are very happy to see the women, in both from Machakos and here. And we want to tell you how far you go is really up to you. It's not dependent on your circumstances. You can overcome. Welcome to the National Assembly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I'll have problems because I don't have doctorate yet. I come from Homa Bay. Now that Honorable Lillian Gogo has arrived, members allow me to allow Honorable Dr. Lillian Gogo to welcome the students from our best school in the country, actually. Honorable Lillian, Dr. Lillian Gogo. Do you have doctorate by any chance? No, you are not recognized. Dr. Lillian Gogo, proceed. It is time for only women with doctorate.
I want to thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Speaker, I must also pronounce myself to the fact that you also are a great grandson of Asumbi National School that is represented here. And the Honorable Jalango is also telling me, Honorable Speaker, that I must indicate that is also associated with Asumbi National School that is here by dint of coming from Homa Bay County. I want to celebrate all our students who have come to visit the National Assembly, and specifically, Honorable Speaker, allow me to celebrate Asumbi National School for what Asumbi is, for exemplary performance in the national exams and extracurricular activities. But I also want to say this on Asumbi National School, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, Asumbi National School is one particular
The
school.
Honorable Dr. Lillian Gogo will be heard in silence.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker, for your protection. Thank you, thank you. My majority leader, the Honorable Ichungwa, you don't have a PhD, so just sit down. Thank you, thank you. Asumbi National School, Honorable Speaker, takes care of girls with good brains who are called to other national schools and probably are unable to raise their fare to the various schools across the country. When I approached the principal, the chief principal of Asumbi National School, my dear Lynette Pino Sati, may the Lord bless you, may the Lord bless Asumbi. All our brilliant girls are absorbed in that particular school. So I want to appreciate you. Welcome to the National Assembly. And I know that we have very many leaders seated there, other than being in the echelon of political leadership. I know we have leaders in business seated there. I know we have leaders in medicine and engineering and also in law seated there. Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker, and I appreciate the time you have given me. I thank you.
What is out of
Asumbi
order, the
karibu.
Honorable Gadoni wa Muchamba?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I raised my hand when my sister and my very good colleague, the Honorable